please stand up on your feet right now. Stand up, and clap your hands for Mariah Cause.
All right, so I'm so excited to be here. So cool to see all your faces. I feel like I need a second to just take it in. So my name is Mariah, and today I'm going to talk to you about pioneering the wild frontier niches. You guys are going to find out what that means when we get into this. But yeah, let's dive in. And thank you so much for introducing me and starting a little bit about this guy, the Comet Camper. So when I was 19 years old, I started buying up old vintage campers that were full of mouse turds and dry rot and sometimes bloody towels, like really gross. This one specifically, full of bloody towels and like old bullets. So to give you guys some context, when I started buying up these campers when I was 19, at the time I was living in a punk commune. I was paying $50 a month to live in a closet in the house. I didn't need a lot of money. I made the very small amount of money that I did need to live on by just buying clothes at the thrift store and selling them online. So I started buying these campers. I have always been obsessed with vintage campers. I don't know why, but I always wanted to live in one ever since I was little. I really like that they're self-contained, and I really like that they're sort of self-sufficient. They feel very cozy to me. And when I bought my first one and stepped into it, it felt like I was putting on this like little spacesuit that I could wear, and it had everything I needed in it. And I just love that feeling. So I started buying the vintage campers and renovating them. And I convinced my boyfriend at the time that like this is how we were gonna strike it rich, right? I was like, look at this, like we're gonna make so much money flipping these campers and selling them. And also like what 19-year-old girl doesn't feel like this is like the most fun way to spend all your time, right? I look happy. Yeah, no, I wasn't. It's a dirty, dirty job. So when I started renovating the campers, I started a blog about it. Mostly because I was just desperate to connect to other people that had this obsession, and no one around me, in my town or where I lived, had this obsession. So desperate to connect with other people who were as obsessed with campers as I was, I started CometCamper.com. And I love vintage campers, obviously. This is one of the ones that we did that I lived in for a while. And I love them, but at the same time, I was also learning how to install solar panels and how to build composting toilets. So I sort of combined those two interests together to create this really specific, tiny niche for myself. And it was so specific and so unique at the time that people started asking us to tour around with the camper and do events and go to rallies and speak at workshops and conferences and all this stuff, and basically teach people about what I was doing with renovating the campers and living in them and all that stuff. So I got to move into my little work of art, my little spaceship. Side note, I would eventually decide that that camper was way too big for me, and me and my boyfriend moved into my Honda Element and lived in that for 2 years. So, but people started asking me, when I was living in the camper and when I was living in the car, people started asking me all the time, how did you do that? Like, how are you doing this, right? People wanted to know how I could live in a camper or a van instead of paying rent in an apartment or living in a house like a normal fucking person, right? People wanted to know, like, how does the toilet work, right? Like, that was like everyone's first question is like, how do you poop? Right? That's like the #1 question, which I have a really interesting answer because we do have a composting toilet, but I'm not gonna tell you about it now. You can ask me later about how I poop. So how does the toilet work? People were asking me like, how do you get Wi-Fi on the road, right? How do you have internet for your blog and stuff like that? And mostly people want to know, how did I get rid of a bunch of clothes so that I could fit everything I owned into this 2 cubic feet of space? And people started asking me so much that I didn't realize at the time that the wisdom that I had or the knowledge that I had about that was something that other people, I guess, would be willing to pay for. I think a lot of us take our wisdom for granted because the thing that we're doing all day, every day, we think of it as just common knowledge. We think of it as just like second nature, right? We're like, we do this all day, every day. We take our wisdom for granted. But so many people started asking me about it that I realized that I could teach other people what I was doing. I basically was just like, I can answer all these questions that I'm getting all day, every day, probably in an easier way than just emailing back every single person that emails me, right? I could teach other people, and I could actually provide value that people were legitimately asking me for. So I did something kind of crazy, and I created the first online course in this specific, tiny, really little space, right? Like physically and like also, online. But I created the first online course in this really tiny niche. And I didn't have any successful examples in the space at the time to look to as a model or to emulate, right? There wasn't anyone else doing what I wanted to do. There wasn't anyone else I could look to and be like, oh yeah, validation, like, see, this has potential. No, there was nothing. So I was being the pioneer, right? I was the first person to bring a digital online course to this specific space that didn't have any at the time. And by doing that and creating that really specific niche course allowed me to turn my blog into an actual business, right? Which, much to my surprise, became a six-figure business, which is like very strange for someone who's used to like shitting in the 5-gallon bucket in a Walmart parking lot when I was living in the camper. Very strange, and I didn't expect it to become successful. I think that might be a common thread too with a lot of people here who have had like any amount of success with their blog. You're like, I didn't expect this. I didn't know anyone was gonna care about this, right? And to me, I was like, I'm just answering people's questions. That's all I'm doing is just, they ask and I answer. But what I learned was that the biggest opportunities for us as entrepreneurs are in the wild frontier niches, okay? They're in these spaces where no one is doing this. Okay, so look around, you guys. I don't know if you guys noticed, but for some of us, we're in a bit of a bubble, right? We're in this little bubble, this little sort of self-referential bubble where you're seeing bloggers blogging about blogging. You're seeing, you guys, how many people are watching webinars about how to do webinars, taking courses about how to launch your courses. And a lot of you are probably in a fucking funnel right now about like how to make your own fucking funnel, right? So if you think about it, like I can make that joke because a lot of those are examples from my business, right? Like, so you're in the fucking bubble, right? This industry is just talking to itself. And it's such a fucking waste, okay? It's a really huge fucking waste because the reality is that most of the world is not in this bubble that we're in, right? Most of the world doesn't exist in the online marketing or online entrepreneur, online business. Like, they don't exist in this world. Most people are looking for resources, information, and products that they can easily buy online that have to do with their day-to-day lives, or that have to do with their obsessions or their passions or their hobbies or things that they care about, right? Like people, 99.9% of the world is looking for information, resources, and products that they can buy about, how to set up a chicken coop in your backyard, or how to make barbecue at home, or how to put a fucking solar panel on your camper, right? That's what people are really looking for. And so the good news is that there's so much fucking opportunity out there outside of this space, right? There's a wild frontier of opportunity. And so what I want to do today is tap into your pioneering spirit, because I feel very strongly that the biggest opportunities for us as entrepreneurs are outside of this room, outside of this bubble, and outside of this space. So I want to show you how you can take what you're going to learn this weekend and take what you're going to learn at this conference, all these marketing skills and strategies and things that people are going to talk about, and how you can bring them into these wild frontier niches, because the biggest opportunities are hiding in these really tiny but really obsessive communities and spaces, okay? These are the places where digital products, webinars, email courses, it's all brand new, and there's nothing like that in these spaces yet. Okay, so let me show you some examples of what I'm talking about so that you guys don't just think like, okay, she's kind of crazy. So let me show you some examples. First of all, the people I'm about to show you and introduce you to, they did not start out thinking that they were gonna be very successful, right? I don't think any of us start thinking like, wow, I'm gonna be so successful. I'm a pioneer in my niche. No, that's not how they start. Most people start out just wanting to share something that they care about with other people, and to do it on a blog is kind of the best and easiest way to do it, right? So I think a lot of us can relate to that. Like, why do any of us start a blog? I think it's usually so that we can share something that we're passionate about, and we can connect to other people with shared interests, right? So for me, it was being desperate to connect to other people who were obsessed with campers in the same way I was, and I couldn't find that where I lived, so I had to go online to find that connection. Okay, so first I want to introduce you to a student of mine. Her name is Rebecca Jones. She runs a blog called RebeccaRJones.com, and she runs a course called Page Prep. So Rebecca teaches people Bible journaling. Bible journaling. I did not know this was a thing until I met Rebecca. I don't know if anyone here also doesn't know that this is a thing. But people want to create art in their Bibles, in the pages of their Bibles, but they don't want to ruin the Bible, because that would be bad. So they don't want to ruin the pages of their Bible. They don't want to light it on fire by accident. They don't want to ruin it by getting watercolor all over it. So she's developed this really unique technique, this really unique method of creating art in the pages of your Bible in a way that won't ruin the pages, right? Or won't ruin the paper and make it so that your Bible is destroyed, which is not good. Okay, so she created this unique way of doing this. She created an online course where she teaches people how to do this. She teaches people the technique, the technical way of preserving pages and paper while you're doing art in your Bible. And she makes a living doing this. She has a huge community. She has an amazing course with all these students enrolled. And it's this is what she does for a living, right? This is amazing. I just think it's so, so cool. Okay, next example. Rob Knopper is a percussionist in the Met Orchestra in New York City. And he teaches other people how to audition for the orchestra. So the sort of classical music world, I don't know if anyone here is in that world. It'd be cool if you were. Woo, okay, awesome. So you might have this experience, but when I talked to Rob, he was telling me how it's very traditional, very buttoned up. It has a lot of oh, you have to go to the most prestigious school and all this stuff. And in terms of auditioning for the orchestra, most people will never have that opportunity ever in their life. And if you do have that opportunity, it's a really big deal, and it's only going to happen once in many, many years, right? So when Rob came up with the idea to create a course about how he prepared for the audition that would earn him a spot in the Met Orchestra in New York City, everyone in his industry told him he was going to fail miserably, right? Everyone was first of all, no one's going to take an online course because they're really looked down upon in this particular space. No one's going to take an online course. No one's going to care about that. And also, no one even knows what an online course is. So you're never going to be able to sell this. Well, sure, it won't surprise you that Rob did create and launch his course, and it was amazing. He blew it out of the water, continues to fucking crush it every time he launches. And I talked to Rob recently. He is now creating, the next course he's making is about how to play the triangle. And the crazy thing is that, I know it's gonna be super fucking successful, the triangle. And I'm really excited to see him launch that too. Okay, so there's obviously hundreds of other examples I could show you, but I just wanted to show you in a couple of examples that nothing is too small and nothing is too specific, right? And what might surprise you about people like Rebecca and Rob and Me with the Campers is that these frontier niches, this is actually where we see the most success, okay? Even the B2B people, the B2B students that we have, they have a much harder time building an audience and selling what they do because it's so oversaturated, whereas we see this incredible success in these frontier niches, right? Which goes directly against what a lot of people believe, which is oh, you should be selling marketing online, if you want to make money online, or if you want to make money online, you have to teach how to make money online, right? That's the biggest myth, because we've seen time and time again that actually the opposite is true, and there's a lot more success happening when you're the first person to bring things like webinars or digital products or email courses to a niche that doesn't have any, because the golden opportunities are in these frontier niches, okay? So I'm gonna go through 3 perks of being a pioneer. You guys probably kind of caught up on some of these as we're going, but I want to make it clear also that you don't need to invent this niche from scratch, right? You don't need to actually come up with this hobby or this idea. You just need to be the first because you guys are here, you guys are learning marketing skills, you guys already have marketing skills. You just need to be the first to bring those marketing skills and strategies to these spaces. Okay, so perk number one is that you get to be a big fish in a small pond. Okay, so a lot of people, when they think of an idea for a course or a business, they usually get held back because they're like, well, no one else is doing this. Like, I don't see any other successful examples, so I guess I can't be the first, and there's probably not a market for it, or else someone else would have figured it out already. So I guess that just means there's nothing. And a lot of times you might have heard the advice of like, oh, find someone doing exactly what you want to do, and then just like reverse engineer it. Like, that's such bullshit anyway, for a lot of reasons. But that's why I don't like that advice, because it's like, oh, you have to find someone else who's doing what you want to do. Well, what if there's no one else doing what you want to do? And so when you have the pioneer mindset, instead you're thinking, oh my gosh, I found this space where no one else is teaching a course, or no one else is doing webinars, or there aren't any other free cheat sheets that people can download. And so you find that and you say, oh my God, I could be the first. Okay, so that's the difference between feeling like, oh, no one's doing this, I guess there's just no market here, or else someone else would have figured it out, to like, holy shit, no one else has figured this out yet. This is the biggest opportunity. Perk number two is that it's an untapped market, which just makes it exponentially easier for you to attract and build your audience and your community, your email list, and therefore make sales and sell your product, right? So much easier. Mostly because these niches, these communities, they're already out there and they already exist, and they're like hungry for people to bring some of this information online to them because they don't have anywhere else to get it, right? The only thing about this is that it does require a little bit of education on your part. So like in Rob's example, literally people in his audience did not know what an online course was. They did not know what a webinar was when he went to go and launch his course. So there's a little bit of education that has to happen before you can even sell your thing. You have to be like, this is what an online course is. Let me explain how it works. No, you don't have to come to a physical location. Like, yeah, a webinar, you actually can just watch it from your house. You don't have to come to my house to watch it. It's just like people are like, oh, where should I be at what time? And I'm like, just stay at your house. So it does require a little bit of education, but it's worth it. Okay, and the third and my favorite perk is that everything is exciting in frontier niches. So in the bubble, we're all like inundated and oversaturated with webinars and free ebooks and fucking 3-part video series. Like, when was the last time you watched a fucking 3-part video series? Like, you don't, because you know what it is, right? And so everything is exciting in these frontier niches. They're like, wait, I get to watch a free video about this thing that I'm obsessed with? Like, thank you. Or like, oh my God, you're giving me a free download? Like, thank you. They're so excited, which makes me really excited. So that's awesome. Okay, so how can you find your own wild frontier niche? Because I feel so strongly that for all of us here with these skills, entrepreneurs, innovators, people who know how to run a blog and do this kind of stuff behind the scenes, the biggest opportunities for you are gonna be out there in these frontier niches. It might not be next week, it might not be next month, it might not even be next year that you do this, but I want you to be thinking about where this opportunity could be for you. And a lot of times it's hiding in your personal obsessions. And it's most likely the thing that you feel like is the least likely to be successful. Okay, so it's usually the thing that you're like, okay, well, that's probably the most unmonetizable thing that I'm interested in. It's just a side hobby for me, like no one else would care about that. It's probably that thing. It could be hiding in the subreddits that you subscribe to, right? It could be hiding in the Pinterest boards that you are obsessing over, scrolling through all day. It could be in the Facebook groups that you guys are like looking at every single post at 3 in the morning. It could be in one of those places. For me, it was actually on Craigslist because I realized how many hours every single night I would spend hours and hours and hours just going through pages on Craigslist looking at campers that were for sale. Don't tell my boyfriend, because I still do that. We have like way too many campers, and I'm not allowed to buy any more. But like for me, it's like, okay, if I'm spending hours every day just browsing through these, that to me is like the key indicator that I'm onto something with that, or I should pay attention to that. That's a potential frontier niche for me. Okay, so bring it back. How many people here are in the B2B space? right? How many people here? Okay, cool, so you serve other business owners, right. So how can you be a pioneer even if you are in the B2B space? Because like I said, I don't think that all of you are gonna go out and be like, okay, time to go start a frontier niche business. I know that a lot of us serve business owners. And so today, I run a company called Femtrepreneur, and we fit very squarely in that category, right? We teach blogging, we teach webinars, we teach courses, but specifically, we teach people how to become the first person in their space to bring things like courses or webinars or funnels to their really specific niches, right? That's what we help people do, just like I did with the camper stuff, right? So people who create courses about all sorts of different weird things. These are just a couple examples. But they're the pioneers, right? And so at Femtrepreneur, we like to keep the pioneering spirit as well in everything we do. And what that means is that even in the B2B space, it means that we are always embracing risk and experimenting with new ways of doing things and pioneering new ways of doing things, as opposed to just following the proven formula or doing what's tested and what works and what everyone else is doing, right? It'd be so fucking easy to just emulate what everyone else is doing, right? Oh my God, this person, they have Facebook ads going into a funnel and they're just making all this money. It looks so easy. It would be so easy, right? But especially for you guys in the B2B space, the only fucking way to be successful, the only way to stand out is to be the pioneer, because there is a lot of competition and it is oversaturated and there's a lot of people doing what you do. So the only way is to be a pioneer. So you can't actually just go and emulate what everyone else is doing and be successful with it. Trust me, I tried that once, failed miserably. Just look around, you guys, at the speakers that you're gonna see this weekend. All of them are here up on stage and have built successful businesses because they're pioneering some piece of this space, right? They have a very unique approach to the way that they do something about their business. And so I want you to embrace the pioneering spirit in everything that you do. And I want you to specifically think, how can I be the first? Or where can I be the first in what I do? How can I do something that no one else has successfully done before? Or it's not something that I read about that someone else has had success with. What if I just did the opposite, right? How could I do the opposite of what everyone else is doing in your industry and see how that works? Because it could be the thing that fucking makes you stand out, makes your business blow up. All right, so to wrap this up, we need more pioneers bringing all the skills and strategies that you're gonna learn this weekend into every corner of the internet, okay? We need you guys to be the pioneers, to bring what you're gonna learn this weekend into these frontier niches, okay? Because there are hungry communities just waiting for someone to fucking give them an online course, or someone to give them a webinar, or someone to produce a digital product that they can do from home, right? They're starving for this. And so I need you guys to think about how you can give them that. And I want to beg you, I implore you, to please bring these skills that you guys have outside of the bubble that we're in today, okay? Because I so strongly believe that your next huge opportunity as an entrepreneur is hiding in these frontier niches, but the only way to find that opportunity is to go outside and get some fucking fresh air. Thank you.